Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So obviously today, Armada University, we've had so many amazing artists coming and joining us, breaking down projects, and Yuki has brought her laptop and is going to break down one of her tracks that she's released on Armada. Tell us a bit about it. Tell us a bit about the tune.
Yeah, so I'm actually really, really happy to be here. Sorry, I know we started a bit late. I've literally just arrived, but super excited to be here. It's actually my first Afro House release. My background is I'm from Nigeria, born in London, but when I first started, making music, releasing music in 2021, the aim was to really play and make something that would go off in London as well as Lagos, literally global. My background is, my dad, I grew up with him playing a lot of disco, house, funk, Fela Kuti. I don't know if anyone knows who Fela Kuti is, but I really just wanted to bring that and mix that into dance and just bring, just everything that makes me into my music. So I feel like with this track, it was probably the first time that I think I did that. Not, slagging off any of my other tracks, I love them as well. But I think in terms of, ticking that box, which is really, really hard to do, in terms of making something that feels like you, I feel like that.
When did you first learn to produce?
So that has been a work in progress, to be perfectly honest with you. I got into, music because I used to sing, and I got into DJing first because I was always with producers, and every producer that I was, in a session with, they pretty much had decks there. So I'd get on the decks and I literally learned that way. And then when I started, DJing, I was like, I want to, play my own tracks. So full transparency, I work with, producers, so I co-produce. And I feel like in the dance space, that's not really something that is spoken about much. And, I don't know, I see other genres like hip hop, rap, whatever, and there's literally 50 producers. Whereas I think with dance, it's not something that's spoken about. So my journey is still ongoing. I work a lot with Owen Norton. I don't know if anyone knows who he is, but he's been great. He probably would have been here with me today because I feel like it's really good to see a collaboration as well. So in terms of my production, it's been ongoing. I'd say probably the last 2 years.
Did you do a course or did you just open a project at DAW and start laying down beats?
I didn't do a course, although I think Owen probably gave me a crash course without him meaning to or wanting to. But no, we just go back and forth. It'd go from, I want this kind of sound. And I'd say to him, I don't know if you guys, I love emojis. There's the yellow, ding emoji. And I'd always send him that, but more this. And it got to the point where he was like, you have to learn how to do this because it's getting a bit ridiculous. So yeah, it was literally just, learning as I, was making and going on.
Wicked. So you bought a project?
I have, yes.
Should we start having a little look at it?
Yes. Is it? Oh, it is open. Perfect. I've got notes as well because you don't want to forget anything. And in terms of the project, it is a mix of midis and stems, as mentioned, I do a lot with Owen. So there's some from his file that has been brought here, but I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to walk you through it. I guess I'll just start off. So with Afro House, and for me in general, before I started, the drums was always the most important part, I would say. I really wanted a big rhythm. I wanted something that kind of cut through. And if I solo, for example, the kick, you'll kind of get a... Is that connected?
Audio cable. Is it in? Yeah.
It is in.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So starting off here, this, for example, up until about 9, I don't know if you can see it clearly there, it's got a lot of the low EQ removed from the first bit, and then as we get here to this bit, it's a little bit more fuller. And again, this is just a stem, but the EQs for this were cut in order to make that. Let me just pause. And then in terms of this bit here, it's just a closed hat. But you can tell, for example, when they're played together, it starts to get like a bit of a rhythm, which is what I want. Like I always kind of start off with this. And I know that there was an automation, obviously it's not on this bit, I'm just going to pause that. There was an automation like here that makes it kind of go in a bit more on the drop so that there is, I guess, more impact. And that's throughout this, but as mentioned, that is a stem. Guess I'll continue going down, bear with me.
So how do you come up with that rhythm? Was it something that you came up with together, or did you go to him and be like, right, there's this beat pattern that I want to create?
So it's a mix. I think for me, we'll start off with a kick, because I would say that's like the heartbeat of the track. And then I kind of want to be able to feel it. And with the hat, it's about filling, I guess, the frequencies, like the low perk and the main perk are quite low. So it's just about having something that sits in and fills that bit. But again, yeah, it's kind of, for me, I'm all about feelings. I don't know, like it's technology, I get it. But at the end of the day, you make music so that it connects. You make music so that people tap their feet, you know, and dance along. And I think the drums obviously brings that rhythm to it. I'll just continue, bear with me. Again, I've got my notes because like I said, like I don't want to forget anything and I feel like it's quite important. So, sorry, I'm so the wrong bit. And then again, this just kind of fits into that higher frequency. There's a triangle there. And again, I'm just going to play it all together. You kind of start to get a feel. And I feel like it's quite punchy. It cuts through. What I will say is like it's Afro house, but being from West Africa, I think I wanted to add the sounds. Like I feel like with Afro house, a lot of it's very like South African, a lot of it's Kenyan, which I love, but I wanted to make it me. And again, I wish Owen was here because he'd be able to explain just how much of a headache I gave him with the drums. And that's why these are, you know, this bit here is his stem. It was really just taking a lot of the lower EQs out to really give it that attack, but also kind of have that softness, which a lot of West African drums do have.
When you're working with Owen, do you work with reference tracks where you send him ideas and then he picks bits out? Is it like a starting point?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I first started, I'd always have reference tracks because you do like, there's tracks that you love and you see they go on to do great things and it's like, I want something like this. And it's not to say I don't do that anymore because I do to a certain extent, but I think it's more so a feeling. Like I want something that, you know, people will want to dance to. I want something that, you know, will go off in Tulum or will go off wherever. And it's really just that. And at the same time, it's when I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of guys in here. I want to make music for girls as well. That's like my number one thing. Sorry. Like I feel like I'm a female and I DJ. And whenever I DJ, I want to play the tracks that the girls will, you know, go and dance to because I feel like if the girls dance, then, you know, whatever. And that's my starting point. So the fact that this song is called, you know, like Pretty Lady So Divine was really kind of, I guess, paying homage to that. And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, so sorry. It's like my first time actually breaking something down as far as the production. But I really want...
I was just going to say, don't worry about that, because everyone here is an up-and-coming producer. So these sessions are absolute gold, because sometimes everyone can sit here and we have really, really advanced producers, and it blows your mind because you don't understand. So seeing your process at this level is so amazing for everybody here.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think for me, it's like this section here, it's just like the rhythm. It's the rhythm has to be right. Like I'm a terrible dancer, which is why I DJ and I'm kind of, you know, whatever. But I feel like there's got to be a tap. There's got to be, you know, a shoulder kind of movement. So again, I feel like it gives that. If I go down to this bit here, there's quite a few shakers just layered and they all feel different bits. Let me go to it. If I go to this one, for example, this is quite low. And then
Where do you find your sounds from?
I use Splice. I use Splice a lot. I'm quite basic. Like you'll see like a lot of this is just like Serum, Kickstart, because for me, I feel like, and I feel like the essence of this track, like once I break it down, and I will get into like certain things in terms of like how MIDIs were EQ'd and like automations. Sometimes I've found with tracks I've overthought things, and I don't know, like at the time I'm like, let's add this, let's do this, or whatever. But Splice for me works a lot. Even like the vocal, it's a sample. I think my first release was actually like a Splice sample. This was not from Splice, but I'll get into that when we get to the vocal bit. But yeah, I use Splice a lot. But then there's also like producer loops, just various, but I find myself, going back there. Let me continue. And then there's the snare roll as well, just classic in terms of the drop. I don't know if I should play that bit, but I feel like it's quite basic. Let me get to it. There it is.
Have you always used Logic?
No. So in terms of my background, I actually started off in terms of like delving into production. I did like radio syndication for a company called Noise House, which was part of Listen Up at the time, and they used Ableton a lot, and I'd have to like go on. I don't like Ableton. I don't know how many of you guys use Ableton, but I don't. Like in terms of Logic, I'm not the most technological person. Like, and I feel like personally for me, this is why this is quite good, because a lot of what I do comes from feelings and just putting stuff together and playing around, and it probably takes me longer than it takes the average person, but typically like I'm quite happy with the results. I don't know, in terms of like, I know you produce as well, like are you someone that's quite quick, or
Well, I've not been doing it long either. I started on Ableton, and for me I'd always put the drum pattern in, then build around it. It's like anything though, isn't it? Sometimes you can build a track and it comes really quickly, and other times you can build a track and you can be in a beat loop for like 6 hours, then you're going back to it thinking, right, this is going to be okay, and then you're back in it and you're like, oh my god, and it's going round around your head. And there's other times that you can write a track in a couple of hours and you're on to the next thing.
It's done. Yeah. And I think that part as well, in terms of what you said about being on like a beat loop for like a couple of hours, I think that's where collaboration for me is key. There are some people that don't like it and they just kind of want to do their own thing, be sat in their bedroom, wherever, studio, just working. If I didn't work with Owen, this track would not be completed at all. And I know that as incredible a producer as Owen is, and as quickly as he can do things, if he didn't work with me, this track wouldn't be completed at all, because we add different things, and there's sounds that I will go through because I feel like I spent ages like looking for samples and looking for various different things, and he's like, wow, where did you get this from? Or, you know, I feel like collaboration is key.
It's really interesting because when you first start out, you're not always aware of that, and so you can sit at home for hours and you can be sitting working on things and thinking, God, this is going to take me years. How am I ever going to get there? And then, like you, it was when I started collaborating with people, and whether that's vocalists, whether that's keys players, whether that's other producers, that all of a sudden you have these different energies from different people collide, and your work just steps up a gear.
Definitely.
And there's different ways of working, isn't there? You can sometimes work on a beat and then take that beat into a studio session, then you work on it together, or you can get in a studio session and work on it from scratch and be, you know, I don't know if everyone works with airdrop, but there's so many times in a studio session where you can be just airdropping sounds back and forth. You're like, right, I found this one, I really like it, airdrop it. And then before you know it, the tune kind of builds itself.
Exactly, like that happened the other day. Actually, I had a session on Wednesday, and we started off on someone else's, like I guess Mac, and then we ended up on mine, and it's just like sharing things, which I love. But I'll get back to this. Snare roll, again, just impact, basic splice sample. Moving on to the effects. I'm keeping track of time as well because I feel like I'm going through it quite quickly. And there's quite a few here. There's just like various different white noise sweeps. They're all different, and basically the reason is just for impact, transitions. So if I, for example, click on all of them here, you can see just a lot of white noise. But without them, if I play it, it sounds just quite flat. So again, basic, but it has its purpose. And I just add it in. And then again, there's rises, which I will get to, but I'll just do these to start off with. I can hear like the ARP there, and I love the ARP. That's like my sound when I was talking about that emoji. That's the sound, which I will get to. And then what I'll do is just play it with, just so you can tell. And they're all different, but it's just got that kind of sound to it. And then again, just with the rises, I'm just gonna. Similar kind of thing, just adding texture, a lot of texture to the track. Okay, then I'm gonna get to the bass. And in terms of this, it's just like a basic sine sub, bear with.
Are you playing these in? Have these been played in, or are they samples?
So these, I think these have been played in, yeah. In terms of the notes, they are C sharp and E, and these are basically just throughout the track. Again, I'm just gonna get to the Reese here. Again, same C sharp, E. I think if I...
Has anyone got any questions so far? Go for it.
No worries. Mm-hmm.
For example, it's like a whole vocal sample, and you release it. Does it not belong to you? Or, for example, if someone else releases the song, the same vocal sample, do you know how does it go?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so like I mentioned, like quite a few of the tracks I released royalty free. So that's the key, like the word like royalty free. So you own 100% of the, I guess, the copyright when it comes to that. But then because it's up on Splice, loads of people can use it, which they tend to do now. And it means that at the same time that you're releasing something with a vocal, there could be hundreds, thousands of other people still using that same vocal. I would personally say from my experience with that, I know there's quite a few, I don't know if you guys know, Abby Flynn, Kate Wilde, they do a lot of the vocal packs, and I've actually used both of their vocals. And what I did was reach out to them personally just to see, play them what I had to see if they wanted to add anything to the tracks that would then make it sound different to the actual, I guess, splice samples that you have. And then to even see if they'd want to be on the track, because then again, that adds to it. And I managed to do that with Kate Wilde, and then with Abby's track, I guess that is an example of when I released a track that I thought was incredible and I thought was really great, and then somebody else used the same vocal and just absolutely killed it, and it did really well as far as commercial success. But yeah. Well, I'm glad. Thank you. No worries.
Anyone else got any questions? Yeah, go for it, mate.
I was just wondering, when you're producing, do you tend to, because you said you work with Owen,
Mm-hmm.
do you tend to work in like a studio setting, or do you sometimes prefer
Yeah. So Owen's now in Australia, having the time of his life. But when he was here, like I was based in London and Owen was in like Liverpool. So we worked remotely. And for me, it was good because I think you're both in a setting where you're comfortable. I think it doesn't matter where you are. There are people that produce like #1 tracks that are, in their bedrooms. People that produce, great tracks and the vocal is recorded, on their their phones. So I think for me, it's just about being comfortable, and with collaboration, it can be anywhere. I think with a studio, I don't know if I've used Pirate, I use Cube in London. It's all paid for in terms of hours, whereas in my bedroom, no one's gonna kick me out, right? So for me, that works. And again, it's like soundproofing the equipment that you have.
Amazing answer, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I will get back to it. So in terms of this here, so like I mentioned, it's a sine sub. It's playing the root note, so C sharp and E. This was made in Serum, so quite a lot of it was made in Serum. And it's, just a sub which has been pitched down 2 octaves. So you can see if I click, I don't know why this isn't showing. Bear with me. I don't know where it's gone, but it's fine. There's a low frequency that has been cut a little bit with that. I'm gonna just go into the synths now, starting off with the ARPs. That's not playing. There we go. So you can hear it there, that sound that I was on about. I'm just gonna mute it, because without that, again, they're kind of used in transitions, but it's quite a big impact throughout the track. And it's probably, I shouldn't say, it's one of my favorite parts of the track. I think when it comes to producing, I don't know how you guys feel about it, because these days it changes in terms of the way that trends are, and even Afro House. Like, Afro House has been around for a really long time, but it's only recently become popular. I feel like, for me, I really focused a lot of time on trying to find a signature, and so that when someone plays a track, they know that it's yours. And for me, like I mentioned, like with the ARP, I've tried to make that my thing throughout. I don't know like how necessary we feel like that is in terms of today, whether, if someone turns on the radio and they know, right, that's a DJ Yuki song, if that makes such a difference. But it's something that I like to strive for when I am making my, when I'm making my tracks, just so that there is like a current theme throughout them all. So if 1 minute you are doing Afro House, but then the next minute you're doing Afro Tech, it kind of all blends in together. And then just going further on, there are just some drones here as well.
There's actually quite a lot of different melodies in there, aren't they, that are just layered up?
Yeah, exactly that. Like, again, I feel like it's quite a simple track, if I'm honest, in terms of the way that it is produced. Like, a lot's been done in Serum, and a lot are just splice samples itself. But that's the way that I like to work. And the melodies are a huge, huge part of that. I feel, for me, I like tracks that are sing-along. I like tracks that have various different layers. So when you listen to it at one point, you may pick up on, I don't know, maybe just like the sub or the kick to start off with. But then the more you listen to it, the more you kind of feel and hear other elements with it together. I just go to this drone. Again. Just throughout. And that's quite dominant, I would say, throughout the track. Just going to go to the main pad.
Does anyone else in here make Afro House? Afro House, yeah.
Okay. And I wanted something that sounded really warm. Obviously, I'm in London, but to get the vibes. Yeah, it's something that I really wanted to work on. And it's again the same C sharp E just throughout. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else works in that way, but I'm really just like, I want something warm. I want this, and that's why, like I said, Owen was like, let's just go through this together because what do you mean? But I just find that I get the best results when I do that, as opposed to I want something that sounds like X, Y, Z. But yeah, I'd like to. I don't know if anyone's heard of any Afro house that maybe sounds like cool as in cold, but I don't know. I feel like maybe Afro tech. That's something that I'm gonna work on. Just gonna solo this as well, so the moving chords. So this has an automation on it, which I can go through. So let me pause that. You can see that it goes completely down to 23 when it comes to the verses, and it's just automated so that it closes and then opens back up and then fully closes before the drops, again, just for impact, and then opens back up again to 100% at that point.
What's the automation on?
So the automation is done on Serum for that. I'm trying to...
Is it for like reverb, or is it the volume or filter?
No, oh, sorry. So no, the automation is the filter, which is on there. Any of the automations that are on here are just filters throughout. I'm trying to let me play that bit with everything.
Where's the vocal from?
The vocal is from Vandalism Sounds. I don't know if any of you guys have used that before in terms of, yeah. It's actually from their Afrobeat vocal pack as opposed to Afro House. I personally find for me when I am making Afro House tracks, I don't like using Afro House vocals. And I think that's because they tend to be more West African focused, no, sorry, not West African focused, East African focused, South African focused. And for me, I want to make something that is more West African or even UK leaning. And with Afrobeat is West African. And I find, again, I don't know how many of you really like Afro House, the criticism that Afro House does get, like anything that becomes popular or seems to become popular quite quickly, is that it all sounds the same. So when I am looking for my vocals, I will specifically, like I said, try to avoid anything that is Afro House. Again, when it comes to, sounds like ARPs, that's something that I will try to throw in there. I love dance, I love commercial music, and I want to make it as commercial as possible. So like commercial leaning, Afro House. I'm trying to start something called Afro Dance, which is, I guess, a thing when it comes to like dancing, but that's where I would probably even like to put my sound in general. I'll keep going through it. And then again, we've just got a piano, which is quite basic. I'm just going to play it with that. And you you can hear how everything really comes together. I think when I first kind of heard the sub, I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure. But we wanted it really, really low to try to maintain like a cool element, because the vocal itself is quite high. There's a lot of high frequencies going on when it comes to, you know, the arps and even, I guess, the clap and the vocals. So it was important so that it doesn't go full on cheese for the sub to be where it is. I'll just continue throughout. And in terms of high frequencies, the string is in there as well, which I will solo. I don't know if you hear that in the song. I'm just gonna... But it seems like so minor, but it does make quite a big difference. I think for Afro house and just house in general, it's just about filling up the various different frequencies. So the way that it works is we try not to overpack it, but if it starts to sound a bit too low, we'll be like, right, okay, what can we throw in there? Or can we add this? And again, it's about those feelings. So when the string comes in, it's like, okay, what is it bringing to the track? Where are we putting it? How does it make you feel? I think I have to, because I actually wanted to show you the automations, but everything is connected to my splice, and it did open, so I think at some point I'm going to have to close this, open my splice so that I can get into that, because it's not coming up on that point. Maybe when we have questions or something, because I'd like to actually to do that. And then again, just ambience here. Like everything has a place. Like I don't feel like anything, well, this is my opinion, I don't feel like anything fully dominates, but just like works really well together and feels, like I was saying, the different frequencies. That's probably the only place that I'd say I really overthink it. I don't overthink it when it comes to, oh, this is a vocal, this is a royalty-free sample, loads of people be using it. I don't with that, because I feel like it's how you make it your own. But when it comes to filling up the space, because I don't know, there's like certain parts of tracks, like strings, that make certain people's ears like ping a little bit. Certain people really into like, I don't know, the lows, and they may like, you know, the subs. So for me, I just want to be able to make sure that I fill all those different parts, so that whatever your thing is, you can hear that and you can connect to that. And I'm just going to go to the brass here as well. And we wanted to make that just like quite cool, quite edgy, because the vocal is very, very high pitched. He's singing about pretty ladies. We just wanted to add like an element of coolness in there. And I feel like it works quite well. Again, I'm just going to play it and just see if you can hear that bit, because it does come in. And then I'll just go into this bit to show the lead. And there's an ARP in here, so this is actually a stem that includes an ARP. And yeah, like I said, this one came from Owen's project, and it's just, yeah, same old ARP that we use throughout, and we just continue to use that. But yeah, this literally plays throughout, as you can tell, and is a major part of the track. And then the a cappella, which I feel like I've spoken about quite a bit. In terms of the a cappella, as much as I was like, it's what you do to it, with this, we didn't do that much. We added reverb, we de-essed it, and yeah, I would say that's pretty much it. But I think it's just about that feeling that the a cappella gives you. I like to use vandalism sounds because I don't feel like a lot of people use that. They probably do now, but in my head I don't hear a lot from there, and especially not in terms of the Afrobeat. Another one that I like to use is vocal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. It's like the VOKAAL. Don't know if anyone uses that, but I find that's also got some really good ones. And then I think there's one called Vocalfy as well, which I think is quite used. It's not as mainstream, I'd say, as Splice. I like going and I like having sessions. I do that quite a lot, but then I find sometimes it's all about I don't know, like it can be a bit overcomplicated. It can be a bit complicated when you're working with various different, egos and people, whereas with a royalty-free sample, it's just something that you're able to pick and use. That I think the landscape has changed as far as, yes, it is royalty free, to answer your question before, but I personally, for me, I like to reach out if I can find whoever sang it in advance and just see if there's any way that I can, support them more, or, see if they'd even want to be on it, write another verse and an extra little bit. Yeah, you don't have to, but for me, it's definitely something that I've done in the past and has helped me get someone, who has, done loads of Splice vocals, to do something completely different for me, which I think made a difference. And I'll just solo it.
You make a brother wanna ease up, yeah. Skin soft, pink toes with your melanin dark, yeah. Slow down, jumbo toes with love, yeah. But this smile with the time, go get Mona Lisa, yeah, oh no.
Yeah, so another thing that I should say as well, I think it's also worth reaching out, because with this, I tried to find the guy, couldn't find him. And we played it so many times. In the end, I had to ask various different people for like translations for the vocal itself. We got there, but it took a while. But I think when you can connect to the person who recorded it, which is what I did for a recent track that I did, I tend to ask them as well, like, what made you write this? What made you record this? And then that also adds itself to the production, because you know the sentiment around the original vocal, and then you can apply it in your own way. So I find that helps.
Any more questions? Did anyone else want to ask anything else? Yeah, go for it.
How do you balance stuff with layers in terms of mixing? Because you said there were specific frequencies.
Uh-huh.
How do you make sure that it doesn't clash?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I'm going to try and close this and open it up. Use Kickstart quite a lot, just to sidechain. And pretty much everything apart from the drums here has been sidechained. Again, it's just about the frequencies and making sure that nothing is clashing. I'm definitely going to try to do that just so that I can show you that, because it does make a difference. Without Kickstart and without sidechaining it, it does sound a bit of a mess. So that's, one of the ways.
Any other questions? Yeah, go for it, mate.
I'm interested about the collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about collaborating with producers,
Mm-hmm.
also vocalists. But have you thought, or have you done it collaborating with musicians that can play in the studio?
Yeah, I haven't. But again, that's something that I would like to do, especially to get an authentic sound. It's fantastic that we can do a lot on, a laptop. But I think nothing beats that real essence of, an actual live instrument.
Because it feels like this music is very organic, no?
Mm-hmm.
So I was just
If you know anyone, yeah. No, genuinely, I would love that, because I love collaborating. I feel like when I work with people, like I said, this is quite a basic song, and I mean that in the best way, not as an insult or whatever, but it's, I feel like sometimes the best songs don't have to be overcomplicated, and it is about that feeling. For me, it gave me all the feels, and I was like, okay, this I really, really like. And I, like you said, if you add that organic sound to it as well, it just heightens that even more.
Any more questions? Go for it. Shout it out a little bit, mate. Sorry. It's okay.
Do you usually build the song around vocals, so you look for vocal first, or do you look for it after you start instrumental?
It varies. Sometimes it will just be like a drum there, and I can sing, so I'll kind of like play around with something and then see. But then a lot of the times I am just looking for vocals, and if I find something, the way that it typically works is I'll find a vocal and I'll send it to Owen and be like, what do you think? And most of the time he's like, no, like let's not. But that's because I'm trying to find something that is not typically like Afro house. So the BPM for this I think was like 106 or something, and then we pitched it and worked with it that way. But I enjoy it more when I have the vocal, personally.
Any more questions? Anything from over this side? No? No? Go for it, mate.
Sorry? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. No. Good question. It varies. So with this, like there are some things here that are stems. So we can share the file, we can share the project, and we'll work that way. Or it could just be sending stems and then back and forth. Sometimes, if you do get into a bit of a rut, which happens a lot, then it'll be like, okay, I've been trying this. Can you try that? For me, I like all the arps, like the synths and all of that. And Owen is really great when it comes to the drums, so that's where he'll probably start. And I feel like I'm quite good when it comes to actually like the vocals and working on that. So I will tend to do those. I think it's just about knowing what your strengths are, but then even when you know your strengths, not being afraid to perhaps ask for a second opinion and get somebody else involved, because demoitis is very real, and you can spend ages on something, then listen back and be like, this doesn't sound like how I wanted it to sound. So yeah.
Time for one more question. Does anyone else want to ask anything? Go for it, mate.
I see that you use like a lot of, you have everything in groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you put the effects on the groups or like on the channels separately?
Everything is on the channels separately right now. Again, I don't know if there's a standard way of doing it. Like I feel like in terms of the rules and doing things, it's just like as it goes. And about, I feel like I keep saying feelings, but just like if I want to make a track and it's like, with this, it was like, I want it to feel warm. I want it to feel like, we're in Ibiza or we're somewhere else. If we're adding stuff to it, to various different, tracks, and it's losing that, then we'll just play around with it. So for me, I feel like, yeah, it's definitely, because you can't treat, when it comes to, like, for example, the drums, you can't treat the kick the same way that you would, like, a hat, right? So, yeah, they're all done separately.
Amazing. Thank you so much for letting us into your world and going through your project. It's been really, really fascinating. Can we give a massive round of applause for DJ Yuki? Thank you so much.